Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to ask the question, do you need a retro or do you need an older bike? Well, we're out here on a new acquisition of mine, which is a 2004 BMW R1150R. How did I get here? So I've always had an admiration for the BMW Boxers, and couldn't help myself but look at the R9Ts, which BMW introduced in, I think it was 2013 or 2014. Beautiful looking motorcycle with the Boxer engine, air and oil cooled, but my are they expensive. They've now been updated to the R12. They're $15,000 more. Used R9Ts are not cheap. I know I looked at one and the dealer wanted $9,000 all in, out the door. I'm like, I can't afford that. I can't justify it for a second bike. So instead, I hit up my local Facebook marketplace and I looked for the traditional Boxer bikes and came away with the idea of an R1150 or an R1200R. So here we are. So this has been my slightly biased review of the R1150R. Well, first things first, this bike is not a powerhouse. It's 84 horsepower, 72 foot-pounds of torque from the 1130cc air and oil cooled Boxer. It's not a massively powerful bike. What it is very characterful. That is, it has a little bit of vibe, as you'd expect from a Boxer. It's got a fantastic sound, we'll come to that a bit later, and it's just so nice to ride. It feels like an old classic motorcycle, but it's still very modern. This bike's got fuel injection, it's got the telelever front suspension, it's got the power lever rear suspension. It does not have ABS, although that was an option at this model year. I've read some reports online that they are somewhat temperamental and difficult to maintain, so perhaps they're better avoiding, because everything else about this bike is actually really simple to own and enjoy. It gets up to speed really nicely. It's very comfortable, although this is the low seat option, and I'm pretty tall, but I am not uncomfortable riding this. It's fun. And it's great on little twisty roads like this. It does have 6 speeds, but that 6 speed really is much more of an overdrive. So for roads like this, 1 to 5 is all you need. So let's take a look at this bike. As you can see, it's in great condition for what is effectively a 21 or maybe 22-year-old vehicle. One thing I would say, if you're going to buy a older used motorcycle, is always look for some history, maintenance history. The gentleman I bought this from had it for 5 years. He was retired and is hanging up his motorcycling boots, having put on maybe 5,000 miles in the 5 years he owned it. He had his own service records and he had the records from the previous owner. So I have records on this from 2013 onwards. So I don't have the full history, but what I do know is in those last intervening 12 years, it's had its fluids changed regularly, it's had new tires, it's had its hydraulic fluid changed, it's had the valve clearances checked. Basically, it's been well looked after and should serve me for a few more years. It's an 1130cc Boxer, the Boxer engine being the one that sticks out the side. To my knowledge, only BMW and Ural, who make motorcycles in eastern part of Russia somewhere, are the two brands who still make the Boxer engine on a motorcycle. Subaru still use a Boxer engine for their cars, so it's a proven technology. It has the advantage that it's because the pistons are opposite each other, the engine is naturally balanced, although it's not perfectly balanced. There is still some vibration, and it does have this kind of quirk that when you rev the throttle, the whole bike tips to the right slightly. Nothing too unperturbing, but you'll notice it, and I'll show you that in a minute. Other than that, the bike is really clean. It's got, like I said, it's got new tires on it from me, which is great. So I have here, for a fraction of the price of one of those brand new R12Ts or a lightly used R9T, fraction of the money, I have what I think is a classic, modern, retro BMW motorcycle. It's all aluminum and chrome on the back, simple indicator lights, traditional swept gauges with an analog clock right in the center. And if I just put the microphone down here, just to let you listen to this. I think that is a very sweet sounding motorcycle. Maintenance on these bikes is also really easy, something that you can do at home if you have any basic mechanical skills, willing to follow some YouTube instructions, get some decent tools, changing the fluids, changing the spark plugs, checking the valve clearances. These are all very easy to do. They're also only needed every 12,000 miles according to the BMW instructions. So unless you're going to use this bike like every day for every drive journey you do, if you're going to ride this as a kind of a fun bike, a second bike, a third bike, you probably only put on 2,000 or 3,000 miles a year. You might not even need to do any significant service work while you own it. As I mentioned earlier, the key thing is to make sure that when you buy one, it does have all of those service histories, or so that you at least are convinced that the person who you're buying it from has looked after it well. Because if they've looked after it, there's every chance that it'll look after you. I've measured the fuel consumption on this at around 50 miles per US gallon, so it's probably about 40 to the UK gallon. That's on one tank. There is no fuel gauge on this machine, as I'm sure you've noticed if you've looked at all of the dash while we've been riding. There is a low fuel indicator light. I think that you've got about 0.8 or 0.9 of a gallon remaining at that point. So you probably have a good 30-40 miles still to go to find a gas station, top her up. She does like the premium gas here in the US, regular unleaded in the rest of the world, or at least in Europe. I'm sure she'll run on the less potent stuff, but probably just not with as much power. After all, remember, this is the same engine, at least, when Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman started the whole round the world adventure craze. They rode on BMW R1150 GS's. So basically the sibling of this motorcycle, this being the R, the Roadster, there's an RS, which is a more sporty inclined ergonomics, and then the GS, which is the taller, I'll say off-road, but it's I don't know that most people would call it an off-road motorcycle, but it's taller, longer travel suspension, but it's the same power plant, same basic drive shaft, running gear, gearboxes, and they went around the world on their bikes, and while they had some challenges, if you've seen the show, they certainly weren't unreliable in any shape or form. And that's the other advantage perhaps of something like this, if you're going to buy an older motorcycle, is that they've sold so many of them that they are pretty well supported. You can still get spares for them. There's a whole number of online resources for second-hand parts if you need something a little bit more unusual. There are forums and Facebook groups dedicated to the ownership, so if you have any questions, there are plenty of people out there who will help you. So from that perspective, something like this as a modern, not a retro, a modern classic, perhaps is the right word for it, something that isn't brand new, that isn't really old, you know, that's kind of like a collector's item, but something that you could use every day. This is certainly something that you could put on your shopping list. And it doesn't have to be this bike. There are plenty of others out there that fit the same criteria, I'm sure. So what I would say is maybe just, you know, think about that as an alternative to shelling out a lot of money on a brand new motorcycle or a nearly new motorcycle. Is take a look at your Facebook marketplace, take a look at brands that maybe you've admired, wished for. I can say I've always wanted the Boxer, and now I've got one, and I have to say that after only a few days of ownership, I am not disappointed. This is a really nice, fun bike to ride. It's not a sport bike. It isn't going to set your hair on fire. It's not going to be a bike that I think you'd naturally want to take for a track day. But if it's a bike that certainly looks fantastic, it has some stature. It looks interesting. If you get one in a bright color, this one is a rather dull black, but it was in really clean condition. But there are other colors I've seen, white, silver, red, listed. And if you can find one that's in good condition, then why not? I will also say that I found some tatty ones. I looked at a couple of later model 1200s. That's basically the same, very similar to this bike. Has a slightly bigger engine, slightly more power. It was a new design, so the parts are not interchangeable. But the ones I looked at were, I have to say, were rather poorly maintained, and I didn't want that. I I wanted something that I could park outside my local coffee shop and be proud of, something I could walk into the garage and look at and go, that was a nice bike. And so that's why I've got this one, and so far so good. Well, with that, thank you for watching. I do hope you like and subscribe, and come back for more content. I'm sure there'll be more content on this motorcycle and others. So again, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye-bye.